Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and today we're going to do something that I've been meaning to do for quite a long time now. I've been meaning to kind of really talk about Necrotic as an affix and how you should handle it or play around it as a Guardian Druid. Some classes have an easier time handling Necrotic, some classes have a worse time handling Necrotic. And Guardian Druid kind of falls right in the middle. We don't have the mobility some tanks have, like Vengeance Demon Hunters or Monks, but we do have a solid toolkit to control mobs in such a way where we are able to get away from them for a short period of time, given the 8-second timer on Necrotic as a debuff. And I'm going to just kind of generally talk about exactly how you should be handling it in different situations. So as soon as I got home from work today, I jumped into a Halls of Atonement 17 just to kind of show you exactly how I play around some different scenarios of Necrotic. I'm going to kind of talk about a few different talking points. There's going to be times where I'm going to talk generally about when you should drop Necrotic stacks, and it's going to differ from key to key and your comfort level in said key. I'm also going to talk about some ways to control mobs, to get away from certain mobs, or when you should be kiting. I'm going to also talk about a few kind of like little tips and tricks that you can use. There's a pretty cool trick with Incarnation and the legendary Urzak's Fury Remembered and how it interacts. And then I'm going to talk about briefly like what you need to do when you can't drop stacks. Like, so in particular, like it's a Tyrannical week, the week that I'm recording this key. So there's going to be times where you're just getting hit over and over again, and boss attacks are going to be too fast that you're not actually going to be able to drop stacks consistently without doing some kind of kiting method or kind of praying for like a good amount of RNG when it comes to, you know, dodging. So dodging and blocking allows Necrotic not to be applied, so stacks don't go up as quickly if you can effectively do this. So again, some classes have an easier time than others. Brewmasters go up a lot slower in stacks and have an easier time dropping stacks, where some classes like Guardian Druid, which don't have as high of a dodge chance, have a little bit more of a difficult time because it's not consistent. So we're going to cover all that today. I'm going to walk you through those Halls of Atonement while I pick up some of these kind of Tuesday quests and stuff. All right, let's dive right in. So I guess first things first, I should just talk about talents before I really get into it. My talent build is going to be fairly similar to how most Guardian Druids run. I know a lot of people who play Night Fae will run a Balance Affinity instead of Heart. Heart is good with Convoke and Balance Affinity, of course, but Resto Affinity is also solid. This week, Resto Affinity is going to get a little bit more value, so if you play Resto Affinity and you've ever considered swapping, this is a pretty good week to test this out, because Ysera's Gift Healing is pretty subpar this week, especially as soon as you start getting a Necrotic stack, it's already less effective. And also, like, Rejuving and Swift Mending during Necrotic, like, you can do it while you're kiting, of course, but since you're already taking a lot of damage from the Necrotic, like, tick, as well as the fact that you can't be healed, Resto Affinity is really only good for healing your group, which you're better off trying to get like a nice Typhoon in so you can kite or put more distance between yourself and the mobs. So Bounce Affinity, pretty good this week. I'm still going to run Resto Affinity. Either way, you have Ursul's Vortex to keep mobs away, or you have Typhoon. I like to run Mass Entanglement this week. I typically run Mass or Mighty depending on the dungeon, mainly because I play Venthyr. As some of you may know, some of you might not know, I don't play Convoke, so I don't ever run Heart because there's no reason for me to. Mass Entanglement's going to allow you to kite. It's an additional tool. Yes, the roots do break. There is a certain threshold that's a little bit higher than other things. It has a similar threshold to like Hex, where the mobs can take a little bit of damage, typically dots, take a few ticks before they actually break the roots. So roots can create a little bit of space, and then you'll be far enough away where then you can kite without having to use, you know, dash or some kind of movement speed, your soul shape. And then of course, things like Door of Shadows or Soul Shape, like I just mentioned, are also good tactics to get away. So my talents, again, this row, definitely Bounce Affinity might be a little bit better this week, but again, it comes down to comfort level, but both are fine. Resto Affinity and Bounce Affinity are just fine. And then definitely the Mass Entanglement is a good play if you're struggling with Necrotic stacks. It just helps you create like a little bit of a gap. Everything else will stay the same. Some people like to run Wild Charge. Renewal obviously has a little bit less effectiveness this week, but when you do eventually are able to drop Necrotic stacks and you're at like half health, being able to pop a Renewal is going to be pretty solid. So 25 talent row is another one that can change to help mitigate the Necrotic stacks or effectively helping you drop them. So now that we got the talents out of the way, let's jump into this kind of commentary over this dungeon, I guess. So here we are in Halls of Atonement. The key's just getting inserted. I kind of want to talk about the first pull. Typically you'll have cooldowns up for this. For my group specifically, we actually hero this pull right off the bat. Very common strategy people do. They do a little bit bigger pull. Keep in mind that Necrotic is never going to be applied from special attacks and or casts. So Necrotic is only applied from melees. So in certain dungeons like this, where there are, you know, Obliterators and these Hounds Masters, they're not actually going to apply Necrotic stacks as fast as, you know, the Darkblades or the Gargants might. But as you can see, pretty much almost right away, being in combat for 20 seconds, I'm already at 33 stacks and going up. Now, the unique thing here is that I have Incarnation just faded, so I had a pretty big absorb going in. I obviously had a fair bit of mitigation as well. I had 2 stacks of Iron Fur as well as Earth Warden. And we also have like a Fire Mage and, you know, and we have big damage here. So this pack melts. Of course, it's not a Tyrannical, or it's not a Fortified week, so mobs are going to die a little bit faster. The thing about Necrotic is that it has issues on both bosses and trash. On trash, mobs don't like, so on this week when it's not fortified, mobs are going to die really fast. So Necrotic's typically not a big issue during pulls. And typically when things are starting to die, like the pool's starting to die and you're kind of getting to high stacks where you probably want to start kiting, but you don't necessarily need to. Where on fortified weeks, that's not really the case, where you actually are going to have to start kiting like multiple times, where you have to like leave, like you have to leave the pack that you're pulling to drop Necrotic stacks to then come back in later. But then on the, obviously the other side of that situation, going to be where like Tyrannical bosses are going to be a little bit more devastating because they're able to apply higher Necrotic stacks over the course of the fight. So if you're not able to drop them, the fight's going to last longer. Therefore, you're going to get to a point where you're either going to be unhealable or you have to find multiple ways throughout the fight to drop your stacks. Both sides of the coin can present issues, but it's just something you have to kind of work around and play with. This week in particular sucks for boss fights, but a lot of times the trash, if you have good DPS in your group, like for example, a Fire Mage or, you know, a Survival Hunter, or like a Monk or any kind of melee that's just going to absolutely annihilate every pull, it's not so much of an issue. Though you can see me kiting here. And the reason for that is because I'm at 36 stacks. So typically, I like to start kiting around 30, because 30% or 30 stacks means you're about 60% healing reduction. So right now I'm about 70, 72, I think. Is that math? Big math. That's a good time to start kiting. If you start taking more damage and your stacks keep going up because you're getting meleeed, this is a good time to also use a big DR. This is a time to use the survival instincts. This trash isn't going to kill you. As a decent tank player, this trash will not kill you by itself. It's going to kill you with the Necrotic applied. So this is a good time to actually use a big cooldown. I know a lot of tanks struggle with like finding times to use like their survival instincts because they just don't know when. This right here. Yes, I'm at full health, but I could use survival here. I don't think I end up doing it, so I drop Ursals. The Ursals is mainly for the 2 Gargants that are still active, but they're going to go down pretty quick here, and then just the Obliterator left who's not even targeting me, so it doesn't matter. And the stacks are going to get dropped. So pretty easy. So general rule of thumb, 30 stacks, start kiting. This is when you're going to drop your Ursals. This is when you're going to call maybe for your group to start slowing things, dropping, you know, Frost Novas, dropping Ring of Peace, binding shots, all of that kind of stuff. So going into this next pull, I'm not going to go through every pull in this dungeon, by the way. I'm just kind of trying to talk about Necrotic in a general sense. This is going to be a pull that's going to apply it Necrotic a lot faster because there's a Darkblade and there's 4 Groundskeepers. These are all melee mobs compared to the Obliterator, who's probably never going to apply a Necrotic stack to me, or they might. Just depends on, you know, dodge diminishing returns. But you're going to see my stacks are going already up to 30. Again, we're 20 seconds in or so. And for some reason, I feel like I want to chain this guy. And I mainly did it for this video because I want to show you how high of stacks you can typically handle actually as a Guardian. If you have your mitigation up, like having 5 stacks of Iron Fur, like 40 stacks, I'm still pretty healthy from taking just melees. Again, though, like I'm pretty geared. Like I definitely have some gear behind my bear. But again, like you just want to make melee mobs are going to apply Necrotic a lot faster, so you have to keep that in mind going from pull to pull. Again, Hounds Masters like don't, but Gargants do. So just something to keep in mind. Dave can bust when I had nothing up and died pretty quickly. So that's kind of the general rule of thumb. Again, Ursals and Roots are going to help you kite. Again, I could Door of Shadows away if I really wanted to drop stacks a little bit more effectively. This obviously is at cast time, so that's kind of the downside of it. Let's jump quickly to a kind of a cool thing about Incarn and Ursa's Fury Remembered. So, all right, so this is right before second boss. We're about 70% trash. I pulled a little bit extra because we were waiting for Hero to come off a cooldown. I think, yeah, back up 10 seconds. We still have Hero. We still have Exhaustion. So we just cleared the middle pack, and now I'm pulling over to... I'm pulling some stuff over here just for fun. Like, I normally don't pull this stuff, but we were bored. So for those players who run the Natural Order's Will Legendary, because you like the tankiness and survivability of it, It's not super great this week because it loses a lot of value when it comes to that free frenzied region that you get. The free iron fur is great. Obviously having, you know, a fatter bark skin is awesome, especially if you're trying to like constantly mitigate higher stacks, or you're trying to stay in the full pull and not have to kite. Like that bark skin's gonna have a lot higher value. This week, Earth Warden is definitely the play. Having the reductions on the melee attacks itself. If you're running now, I just don't think it's a great choice. I know some people like to run Survival of the Fittest. I don't recommend it here, but again, you can. But here's why I love Ursoc's Fury Remembered. So I'm pulling all of these Groundskeepers. I'm already at 15 stacks of Necrotic, and we're gonna pull the boss. So here's what's really cool. So I just popped Incarnation. Incarnation has been up for a few seconds now. So has Ravenous Frenzy. Ravenous Frenzy doesn't really matter here, though. It is going to give me more damage, which means bigger shields. But Ursoc's Fury Remembered is technically a heal applied by damage, so it's not affected by Necrotic. So as you can see here, we have like a mage is going to use shifting power and stuff here shortly, so these ads are going to just get annihilated. But I'm already at I'm already at 37 stacks, 38 stacks, 39 stacks, and I'm just keep going up. I'm up to 40 already, 41, 43. And I'm just going up and up and up. I technically have like a 90% damage or healing reduction right now, right? I get hit by this, and I still have like an insane amount of stacks. I have 46. I'm taking 47. I mean, literally unhealable right now. But if you obviously noticed, I'm still at full health with multiple stacks of iron fur. I always have an issue with spending rage. So that's why Incarnation with Ursoc's Fury Remembered is so good, is because the healing reduction from Necrotic isn't applied to the legendary's power. If I'm not mistaken, this is the same thing for Paladins. If you're running the not Holy Shield, what is it? The First Avenger talent, where your Avenger Shields like give you an absorption shield based off of your Avenger Shields damage with Divine Toll, of course. Like both of these things work very similarly, where it's the damage that you do is giving you a absorption, so it's unaffected by Necrotic is essentially what I'm showing you here. So I did drop stacks here because of like how his spell queuing works, and this guy melee is so slow. You should never go above like maybe 3 stacks here, just because of how spell queuing works, of course. So big thing with Incarnation, if you haven't run it before, or if you don't run Ursoc's Fury Remembered, like I recommend picking it up for Necrotic week. It's really fun to play with. If you have Incarn, you feel like a god. Even when you don't, and you're just like regular thrashing, if you're hitting enough mobs, like you're getting a really big absorption shield, which also benefits from Earth Warden, because then they're doing less attacks, which means it's absorbing less of the shield, which means you can go to higher stacks of Necrotic. So bears are typically pretty tanky on Necrotic week, not being able to like consistently drop stacks as much as other tanks are. So cool note there. Lastly, I want to jump to, actually not too far ahead, I'm going to jump to the second boss. This is such a bad execution of this boss, but there's a point where so Echelon melee's fast enough where it seems like you're not going to be able to drop stacks. So you're going to get low here. Like I dropped down to like 2 seconds left on the Necrotic debuff, and then it got reapplied. And then when these ads get kicked and you have aggro on them, they're all going to melee you and apply, you know, Necrotic stacks. So this is kind of a point where you have to figure out windows to drop your Necrotic. Now, this boss is nice because like this Stone Leap, him casting like the Curse of Stone, then casting this will typically give you enough time to drop it. The issue with this fight though is if these ads aren't dying, they're going to keep mailing you, which is, despite him being spell queued and like doing his casts, Necrotic is still going to be applied. In a good run, or like if you want to do this boss really easily and not to worry about Necrotic, you obviously want to kill these ads as fast as possible, but that's sometimes not always the case, as seen here. Playing with, you know, Enhanced Shaman, nothing wrong with Enhanced Shamans, but like this execution of this fight, we just like didn't have cooldowns at certain times, and like ads were a big issue. There will be, like, you're probably going to go up to like 10 stacks on this boss, and you're going to be able to drop it, but again, if ads aren't dying, you're going to have to figure it out. So if we fast forward a little bit, I can't remember when I do it. So let's fast forward to this point. So ads were not dying. I am extremely low on health. I'm about a 50% healing reduction. I already procced my like well-honed instincts, which is like a free self-heal, and like I'm scared because like Curse of Stone's about to come out, but I am extremely low, and if my cheat death procs, it's not going to heal me for as much as I'd like to, because I'm already at, you know, taking 50% healing reduction. So I'm out of Survival Instinct charges. I have Bark Skin rolling, and I have 2 stacks of Iron Fur, praying that I'm going to be able to drop these stacks. I still have 5 seconds left, and he's going to melee me soon. So what I start doing here is I'm going to decide to Door of Shadows. So you can see I'm going to try to Door of Shadows over here, because again, it got reset back to 27. So I'm trying to create distance from me and the boss at about 3 seconds left. That is the best time for most tanks to try to distance themselves because of how melee swings work, and the timer on melee swings for pretty much most bosses. Some bosses are a little bit faster, some are a little bit slower. But typically you're gonna get hit, it's gonna reset a stack, you're gonna dodge 1 or 2 in a row, and then the next hit is gonna reapply the necrotic. So you want to make distance on between that second and third hit so it doesn't reapply the necrotic. Luckily, he's casting Curse of Stone here, so realistically, I didn't need to do this because he would have cast Curse of Stone, and then he would have done his Stone Call, and it would have been fine. Or his Shattering Leap, sorry. So I Dwarf Shadows away with 2 seconds left, and even if he was running at me, there's no way he gap closes in a second. There's just no way he doesn't. Even unless you're a monk who provokes. But that's probably the only time that would happen. So pretty scary moment, but that's the kind of timing you need to kind of worry about on boss fights is finding that that window between 3 and 4 seconds left on your debuff, and then that's when you need to kite or create a fair bit of distance. So I could have called for a pre-script if Deco was in a better position there. Again, it was a really poor fight. Deco was in melee. He's right off of here, off the side of my screen. So when I Dwarf Shadows away, his life grip would have been probably really bad. I was here, he's here. So that's kind of the general, I guess, rule of thumb when it comes to Necrotic is some bosses are going to be difficult because of how fast their melees are. Again, some tanks are able to drop this fairly easily. Some tanks are going to struggle with it. Guardian Druid not having the mobility struggle a little bit more on boss fights. But again, there's always going to be those kind of mechanic windows where you're going to be able to get away and create distance to drop your stacks. So as long as your DPS are making sure mobs are dying that would apply Necrotic, you'll typically be fine. I hope in the future that Blizzard does this and they make it so Necrotic isn't applied. If you guys remember BFA Toll de Gore, the first boss, the Sand Queen, her ads on that fight spawning constantly and applying Necrotic was so you didn't go and Toll de Gore during Necrotic week. And that's what this boss feels like. If you don't get the ads down, or even when you kick them, your stacks shoot up and it's so annoying. But anyways, that's my general guide on how to handle Necrotic, a few different situations. You have your general when to kite, around 30 stacks. The cool thing with Incarnation, which is awesome, and well, Ursa's Fury remembered mainly, but with Incarnation, it's really powerful. And then, of course, boss fights. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do have any other questions about the Necrotic Affix or any other fixes you would like to see me cover, I'll definitely look at doing that in the near future. Hope you guys enjoy. Good luck this week. Probably not the best week. You're better off not doing keys this week, but if you do want to, I hope this helps. I will catch you all in the next one. Take care.